This is Brave New History. We're here with Howard Pinkham. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Yep. And so Howard is online's at the Harlem Scientology org and auditor and running the Purif. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So maybe for people that aren't familiar, what is Scientology and what's the Purif and what is online's? Maybe that's a good place to begin.
Well, okay. So I don't want to. I want to make sure that I don't use terminology that can give people misunderstood words. We're not allowed to, get people interpolated with things they don't understand. Scientology is a religion based on. We deal with spiritual growth and becoming the best you that you can be. We look at things from the perspective of very important things is communication and being friendly and being understanding reality with other people. Um, we understand that reality is agreement, not that there is a one reality. It's an agreement between people that things are real. Um, my viewpoints are my own viewpoints. I study Scientology in order to become a better me. As we are online means that we're part of an organization of Scientology, and we go there to learn and to get what we call processing, which is help, spiritual help from an auditor. And I'm an auditor, I do that. Auditor just means one who listens. I don't do anything to um, change your mind, or I don't do anything to give you through whatever troubles you have. And that will bring about relief in you, and you'll become a more functioning and more able person out of it. The whole thing is to increase the ability of others.
Yeah, very good. And we should say, because we use the word turbulate, which means frustrate. Like we can think of
Yes, right.
turbulence in an aircraft, which I actually enjoy
Mhm.
because I don't know, but generally people don't. And so you think about frustrating. There's a lot of uh, stuff that you don't want, right? So
Yeah,
counter
well, it's
intention, like
confusion. Yeah, yeah. So
yep,
we don't try to create confusion with others. We try to clear communications with people. We want you to understand what it is you're reading or hearing or seeing. And that understanding is based on the fact that you have some liking of what you're looking at, you have some reality towards it, and you have the ability to communicate that. And if you're in agreement with the other people, then you have what's called ARC, which is affinity reality communication, and that equals understanding.
yeah. And for people that don't know a terrible lot about Scientology, that's
Mhm.
a that's a basic concept, isn't it? With the two triangles within the S symbol
Right,
of Scientology. There's the ARC
right.
triangle, and then what's the other triangle that's
It's
involved
called
there?
KRC. It means knowledge, responsibility, and um, uh, causation. Knowledge, responsibility, and causation.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a big thing is being at cause in your life. So not
Mhm.
having life happen to you, but you're happening to life, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So Yeah, so that you're at the Harlem org.
Hmm.
So what's that like?
That's great. Harlem is a great city. It's part of New York City. Harlem
Hmm.
has a history of being, quote unquote, the epicenter of Black culture in America. The reason L. Ron Hubbard wanted a church located in Harlem was because he wanted to involve people of all colors, not races, because there's really only one race, the human race, but all people from whatever walks of life. And there weren't a lot of people of dark skin color in Scientology when he was alive. And he always wanted to have that be a part. So Englewood out in California and Harlem were the chosen places for that because both had histories of being culture for the Black community. By the way, I want to
Yeah,
correct something I said. The KRC triangle is not knowledge communication, it's knowledge, communication, and control. I said causation. It's not. True control is using causation, but the actual word is control.
got it. Yeah, so I guess that brings us to a philosophical point. What's the like to my mind, what's the difference between causation and control? To me, they seem kind of
Well,
synonymous, don't they?
causation is the act of starting something, becoming the reason something began. But control is the way you handle something so that it goes well. You need to learn how to control things because life is about control. If you don't control your body, you die. If you don't control a group, they enter into chaos. If you don't control your your mind, so to speak, that becomes a problem for you. Now, control is something that you need to have knowledge, and you have to take on responsibility in order to be able to control. There's people that are quote unquote controlling people, but they don't have responsibility in that act. That is not good control. It's actually lack of control. Our leaders exhibit a total disregard for responsibility, at least at this time in the world.
Yeah, and you can think of a bad manager, right?
Mhm.
Maybe doesn't really understand the process, but wants to change it anyway, just out of
Yeah,
like an ego thing might be an example.
yeah, that's right. I mean, theoretically, uh, in Scientology, I, as a staff member, am responsible for the entire organization's survival. I'm just a staff member, but all staff members are responsible that way. So technically, if someone isn't on post, I have to take over that post and be responsible for it. And that's why uh, we learn about all the things we do, because I have to be able to do them.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe we'll kind of go back to like how'd you get into Scientology? How'd you learn about it? How long have you been in?
Well, let's say I started in Scientology in 1987. I was off lines for about 20 years. My wife had a problem with the organization in Boston where I was going, and we couldn't resolve it to the point where she would go. So I went off lines for 20 years, just basically doing it, just reading whatever I could read, but not actually practicing the religion. So I was feeling very displaced. So I ended up getting back into Scientology when I divorced my wife, and then started the trek again. And this time here, I've been able to um, become what L. Ron Hubbard says is the um, most important people on the planet are auditors, because
Hmm.
we are the ones that are going to fix all the people so that they can have decent lives, become their real selves, and put sanity in the planet. We have our responsibility is to make the world a better place. Our responsibility is not to profess dogma, it's to help a being become better.
Yeah.
So essentially in 87, I got into it very in a different way than most people. I was introduced to it by myself. I basically picked up a book, read the back cover, and saw that that L. Ron Hubbard was born on my birthday, and I decided that I would read the book. And I read the book, and then in reading the book, I discovered this is the most incredible way of looking at the human mind. And I realized it came not because somebody thought about it in some ivory tower, but he actually did it. He actually went in with people and helped them and discovered those principles, which became the book Dianetics and which started Scientology.
Hmm.
Scientology is a offshoot of Dianetics, but we all base on Dianetics, but Scientology is a little bit different. It deals with the spirit of the human. The Dianetics is basically dealing with the mind. So if you can understand that a human being is comprised of three entities, the one being the body that you see in the mirror and can touch, the other is the mind that is computing and deciding what to do and how to control things, and then the spirit, we call it a thetan, who is running the mind and through that running the body.
Hmm.
So the thetan is the important part of the being, although all are needed.
Yeah. And isn't
I guess
there's
that's the
like
best way to say it.
the genetic mind as well too, isn't there? Or I guess that's a subset of the mind.
Well, there's a genetic entity. You're talking in if you're talking in history of man type of stuff. Genetic entity is the body. That's the DNA. The physical machine we're running is a DNA genetic entity. It has an identity, but hopefully you're not running on the body, because frankly that's not very sane. But if you haven't been cleared with Dianetic auditing, then you are probably using the part of the mind a lot of times which is called reactive mind. That's the mind that the genetic entity, if you will, uses mostly because it reacts to stimuli. The analytical mind, which is what we try to sharpen with Dianetic auditing and then further with Scientology auditing, is the mind that thinks and computes with the material at hand and decides on something, not just reacts to it. The reactive mind is instantaneous. It does it without your knowledge. You don't think about what you're going to do when you crash a car. You just crash the car because the engram told
Hmm.
you crash the car. It, it's not you thinking it. It just happened. So if I can get that engram out of there that says crash the car, you'll live wreck free. And that's what my job is to find those engrams and pull them out of you. Get
Hmm.
them off to the side, get them out of there, put them back into the actual logical mind filing system. Because with the reactive mind, it's chaotic. You can't really
Hmm.
know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And what's the difference between Dianetics auditing and Scientology auditing?
Well, again, Scientology auditing is addressing the spirit, the Thetan himself. It's not, the Dianetic auditing is looking for engrams, which are the things that imprint themselves on the mind, causing the aberrations of the mind, which cause the insanities and the unhappiness and things like that. Scientology auditing is going farther than that. We're actually dealing with the spiritual being himself. The mind is already handled pretty much. You use Scientology auditing to set yourself up so you can do the Dianetic auditing, which is very intense, getting rid of engrams. But the Scientology auditing is dealing with a spiritual person and getting him prepared for the Dianetic auditing.
Or it's not the other way around, that Dianetics prepares for Scientology, but Scientology prepares for Dianetics auditing?
It's the way L. Ron Hubbard has discovered with the auditing cycle. Dianetic auditing is, book one auditing is done without meter, without an e-meter. Scientology auditing is done with an e-meter. And then New Era Dianetics is done with an e-meter. But both of those are, you use Scientology to get the person prepared, and then you go into what's called New Era Dianetics, or the Dianetics on the meter.
Got it. Okay,
The
so
meter makes it more accurate.
You start with book one auditing, and then do Scientology auditing, and then do New Era Dianetics auditing.
Right.
Got it. And like, what was new about New Era Dianetics that makes it different from?
Because when L. Ron Hubbard started Dianetics, it was done there was no meter. There was no electronic device that could signal when charge built up in a person. So you did it solely on what you were doing, what your observation as an auditor. You observe the person who's getting auditing, and you audit based on those observations. Now, the observations go with the quickness and accuracy of the electronics, can determine when there's charge that has affected a human. And now we can address that right there specifically till that charge is handled, and then move on to the next. It's much quicker.
Yeah. Although
much more precise.
Yeah. Why don't people just skip straight to New Era Dianetics?
Because L. Ron Hubbard found that you can't do it directly without having gone through Scientology auditing first. You need that to get you prepared for the Dianetic auditing. Is heavy duty work. It's to do it right, you need the meter, and to use the meter, you need to have the Scientology auditing before. That's just the way it is.
Sure. Yeah, and then you would need what's called the Purif, before essentially most of this, right? Like
the purification. Well, the purification rundown is there. It's based on a book called Clear Body, Clear Mind. And that's where L. Ron Hubbard had figured out that drugs and chemicals and toxins, recreationally or because of medicinal reasons, end up stopping the mind from working very well. It blocks things. It causes problems. It's part of the engramic structure too. So if you get the medicines and you get the toxins and you get the all of the psychiatric and clinical drugs out, and the so-called recreational drugs out, then the mind can work much more clearly and much more competently. So we basically go through the process of taking out those drugs. getting them to rid in the sauna.
Yeah. And like, what do you do? I know vitamins are involved, sauna, exercise. What is it like, the Purif?
I mean, it's different things for different people, but the result is a person who can think clearly and he's more in present time than before. He's
Hmm.
more here. He's not as foggy as he was. See, people don't realize how much of a fog they are in unless they go through and get purification rundown and then what's called the survival rundown afterwards, where we learn how to deal with the physical universe. Most people are in a total daze. They're like 75% not here. They're in the past. They're not here. They're not walking the planet in the same present time as you and me. Okay. So when the purif is handled, that makes you much less foggy. Now you're thinking clearer. You're maybe colors are brighter or things are more sharp or clear or something like that. But there's things that go on which manifest themselves in a better beingness overall, of being a better health.
Yeah,
And it's good for just straightening out the health of the individual.
yeah.
One little side effect, I'll just let you know one thing. It's a misnomer. There's people out there that say your IQ does not change. That is an outright lie perpetrated by the psychiatric industry. I know for a fact, prior to the Purif I did in 2016, prior to that, I had a certain IQ. It was a good IQ, but it was a certain IQ. I went into the Purif. The only thing different I did in the Purif was the Purif, and I was training at the same time but I was basically doing the Purif. When I got done with the Purif, my IQ raised 25 points, putting me into a whole entirely different realm of IQ. So it definitely changes you.
Hmm.
I mean, and
Yeah.
we also look at things like the personality graph, our personality profile that we have, looking at 10 different traits of the human. And the graph, when you start a program here in Scientology, or like I did in the Purif, my graph was much lower than when I got done with the Purif. It was much higher and much more stable range.
Yeah. So meaning, like, we have that graph, and it's kind of like, probably most people haven't seen it, but it's has your personality traits, right? And then maybe what is one of them, communication, and that might be super low, right? But you kind of
Yeah.
want them all to be kind of level.
Well, there's desirable areas of the Oxford Capacity Analysis chart. That particular chart, there's a certain level which is considered desirable above a certain time, and the ones that are below that are undesirable. They're things like
Mhm.
your responsibility. If your responsibility level is really low, you're going to have a low graph at that area. But if it's high, it'll be up in the top part. And so you can gauge how you're dealing with life and how effective you are at life by looking at the OCA. So if somebody's really low on the scale, that's what they think of themselves. That's not what we think of them. It's what they think of themselves. That's their ideas of what they are like.
Mhm.
That makes sense?
Yeah,
That's a
so
different way to
I
look at
mean,
it.
somebody could have like a very high opinion of their abilities, and that would reflect on the OCA, but that might not necessarily actually be the case to observers.
Well,
Does that happen, or?
it's no, it's see, these are asking for your reactions, how you behave yourself, how you conduct yourself, what things, like for instance, there may be a question on there, there probably is not, but there might be a question on there. Um, do you open the door for women? Do you do it all the time, some of the time, or never? And you pick one of those. Well, if the person picks it on never, he's not going to be very friendly towards the woman. That will show a certain area on the graph. But I mean, I can't explain it. It's just,
Mhm.
it's an intricate piece of technology just to discover where you are. And it gives you a baseline so you can know what you want to improve. Because if somebody says, well, you're really irresponsible, you don't take responsibility for what you do, you let other people be the fault. Well, that's not a good way to go through life. So you say, we can improve that. We can do this. We can give you this course will help you improve that. And the person can go there, and after they take the course, boom, their chart rises, and they say, wow, it's much different.
Mhm. Yeah. And so, like, you arrive at this because, like, through, like, there's Div 6 courses, right? Which, let's
Hmm.
say you're very low on communication, you would have, maybe you'd take the success through communications
Perfect
course.
course. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That teaches you
and then
um, how to start a communication, how to continue a communication, how to end a communication, how to handle communication upsets. Those are all part of the success through communication. So you can the basic idea is that once you pass the success through communications course, you can literally talk to anybody. You could talk to an absolute criminal. You could talk to a superstar. You could talk to the president. You could talk to a janitor. Your communication skill is that good. That's what that course teaches. Most people do not communicate well.
mhm,
Most well, I'd say most is probably a harsh word, but a large percentage of people have very weak communication skills. I'll put it that way.
sure, yeah, and
Some of them being our leaders.
yeah, I know we keep going back to that. Which, I mean, there's a bit of truth to that. That maybe for whatever reason, just with communication being so quick, that there's a bit of a lag with other aspects of it, right? Like it is just hard to take responsibility a bit sometimes, especially if you're in a position of power, right?
Yeah,
Because yeah,
yeah. Well, we are facing a couple things that are going on right now that are different than before. We have this internet, and these kind of tools here are very quick, and they're unforgiving. If I say the wrong thing here, I can get in trouble. And I didn't mean to say it, but it came out that way, and I can't get it back.
hmm,
See, if I don't see the recording of this before it's sent out, and somebody sees something and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that," I'm in trouble.
hmm,
Whereas in the old days, it was always done with letters. The fastest thing was the teletype or the
yeah,
telegram. But prior to that, you had to write a letter, and you had to think about what you were going to say so that you didn't upset the person and send it off. Today,
yeah,
you can upset a person without even thinking about it.
yeah.
And people are
I've
very prone to that.
I've had that before where I didn't mean any offense, but you can see how where you could take it, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, especially on social media, that's easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, social media is a perfect place, Elliot, for the discussion about responsibility. Because what is said on the social media is taken for gospel, and it could be totally false. But because it got to so many people so quickly,
Hmm.
everybody knows it. So they say, well, everybody knows he's a communist. Bang, the guy's a communist no matter what. It's like, I don't know, it's just like Tom Cruise gets lambasted by these really irresponsible people in the press and in the social media, where they make him look like he's some kind of strange person. This is the friendliest, best, most responsible person in the world. He and John
Yeah.
Travolta are epitomes of good guys. But somebody makes them out like they're some kind of satanic monster because, and then everybody says, "Oh yeah, did you hear about John Travolta? Or did you hear about Tom Cruise?" It's it may not
Yeah.
even
I
it may have
remember.
be absolute lie.
Yeah, there was that viral video of Tom Cruise. This was during COVID, right? And
Mhm.
everybody's supposed to be wearing masks. Everybody's supposed to be, I don't know how many feet away from each other. And then he
Mhm.
sees some people not wearing masks, being too close to each other on the set, right? And he just goes off.
Yeah.
He's like, you know how many jobs are at stake here, right? How much money is on the line? And producers wouldn't fund his. It was one of the Mission Possible movies, and
Yeah.
nobody would fund it. So he put his own money on it, right? And
Yeah.
like, so I mean, that's a lot of responsibility, right? But he was just like, just say, and then they were saying, "Oh no, I'm sorry," and then there's that phrase, "Don't be sorry, just keep your masks on," or something like that, right? But I mean, he's not wrong, right? That it's hard to ensure a project like that during COVID because things could go sideways pretty easily. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I
I definitely remember that.
I'm a total exception to the rule here. I despise the masks. I despise anything to do with this modern vaccination. The distancing was a joke, and it's all gone away now. There was no epidemic. It was made up. Everything was made up. That's my viewpoint.
Hmm.
And yet I have to follow the protocols when I'm in the org. I have to follow he had to follow protocols when he was on set. I guarantee you Tom Cruise is not worried about anything that's airborne that he needs a mask for.
Hmm.
But he did it because the insurance companies wouldn't insure if he had it if he didn't have a mask on. I'm sure that's what the deal was. So that's
Yeah.
responsibility. You don't want your project to go under because you're being a jerk about their rules. However, um, you know when when somebody mandates something, remember, look up mandate. That is not a law. Mandate is not a law. So mandate this, forget about it. I'm not interested in it. But by the same token, I have to be careful with when I'm in the church. I have to do what the church says.
Hmm.
If the church doesn't want something to be done and I do it, then I'm irresponsible and I deserve to be booted out because I'm not following the protocol,
Yeah. And
whether I
now,
agree with it or not.
yeah, are you at the org right now? Do I see?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
oh, okay. So you're,
I'm here on the
yeah.
weekend, but I'm doing my personal work down here right now. But I am at the org.
Okay. Yeah, good deal. So, Yeah, I that looks familiar. There's like a poster that's what does the poster in the background say?
Well, that's probably the happiness rundown poster.
Got it. Yeah, good deal. Yeah, so you work on the weekends? You're on what is it called?
I,
Yep,
I'm not on a foundation schedule, which is weekends and nights. I'm on day.
got
I
it.
work during the day, but I come in and I do substitute for people on the weekends and things like that.
Sure. Good deal. Yeah. Yeah, that I mean it pretty much covers everything I was looking to cover. Do you have any other thoughts that we didn't get into?
Well, I'll tell you one thing here. I'll tell you a fun thing. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm right now 71 years old. I'll be 71 on March 13th. That's L. Ron Hubbard's birthday. I'll be 71 then. So this year, I plan on starting training again to become a hang glider again. I was a hang glider
Hmm.
in '76 when our ships were barely more than a parachute with some aluminum tubes. Now they're much better and they're much more aerodynamic and aerobatic. And so I intend on becoming the first professional Scientology hang glider, and that'll happen
Yeah,
in 2 years.
yeah, good deal. Yeah,
And I'll
so
be flying around with a
it's
hang glider that's
yeah, go ahead.
then I'll be flying around the world with a hang glider that says Scientology. And
Yeah,
the one other thing that I want to do is swim with sharks, just free dive with sharks. I cannot wait to do that. We've allowed people to destroy the population of sharks, so I'm going to basically make it my point to make sure that the sharks are well represented by me as well as others.
yeah, yeah. I'm not too familiar with sharks, but I mean, are you saying like they get a bad rap for being predators, and you're trying to say that they're actually not harmful to humans?
Let me put it to you this way, Elliot. Okay, when the lunatic who created the movie Jaws wrote that, there were there have historically been maybe 5 shark attacks in the world ever in a year. That's with everybody jumping in the water, doing stupid things and stuff like that. Maybe 5 sharks bit somebody per year. Since that movie came out, humans have decimated shark populations and they do incredibly horrible things to these animals. These are magnificent beings who have every right to be here as anybody else. They are an apex predator. Their job is to handle uh, fish that are not doing well so that they can survive themselves and they keep the populations healthy. They are very important. They're as important as lions. But sharks get this bad name because of that lunatic and his movie called Jaws, which was total lies, misfabrication. It's typical human crap. Make up lies, follow them up, and make it plaster it all over the news and make sure everybody's aware of it and you get lots of money out of it. He made millions. There are millions of sharks slaughtered by evil people who have nothing to do but spear gun them, shoot them, cut them up into pieces. They cut the fins and cut the fins off them and throw them back in the ocean alive, but unable to do anything but drown. I mean, we're talking some really bad stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm sick of humans treating other beings that way. I'm sick of it. I can't stand seeing these quote unquote farmers and how nobly they treat animals. They don't treat them, they treat them like crap. There is no such thing as humane farming of animals. So I'm trying to do the best I can to be responsible enough to carry my life the way it should be, and to help others, and to create a space for all beings to survive. All beings deserve to be here. I have a saying, there is only one monster on the world, and it is a human. There are no other monsters. There's nothing to fear but a human who becomes a monster. Now, as an auditor, I can make people who are monsters well. We're not working on that end right now. We're working on sane people and keeping them saner. But we do have the technology to make monsters civil people. So hopefully someday we can do that.
Yeah. And that's
Anyway,
one thing we didn't touch on
sorry to
is
get on a soapbox.
oh no, that's actually my soapbox too. One thing that we didn't touch on is I'm also vegan too, and you're vegan as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's another aspect to it.
for sure.
I know. Yeah, the whole idea of you know, the ethical treatment of animals, but or like people say that they love animals, but then they also will kill and eat them, which you know is a little bit off. But you know, I'm you know you have to talk to people, and they won't like you if you suggest, well, you don't really like them, you like eating them, right? You don't, right? But I don't say it, necessarily, right? But
Elliot, I do.
yeah, yeah. Or
I
that
do.
if what if it's, I mean, that's a good point, where maybe it's five shark bites justifying, the killing of so many sharks, when, and I'm sure those shark bites, they're accidental, right? That
Yeah, because sharks don't like humans. They taste funny.
yeah, yeah. Or maybe they're just swimming with their mouth open and someone gets in the way, right? Or
Well, there's a
one of them.
really good free diver who is very conscientious about sharks and the ocean. And she has videos all the time. I post them on my Facebook site all the time. It's of her free diving with sharks and other whales and things like that. And these are predators. That's true, but humans, they get weird in the water. First of all, what are you doing out in the water where the sharks are? That's their line. That's their territory. If you're out there, learn to be in their territory. Don't think it's your territory. Humans have this idea that we own everything. I mean, we stole all the land that the Indians used to live on free, and we claim it that we own it because we stood there on it long enough to put a fence around it. What are you kidding me? Where's the sense in this? So you go into Africa and you say, well, I'm going to shoot that rhino because he's in my way. Why? What are you doing there? People hit deer and say, they put up deer crossing signs, and the person says, hey, you put that deer crossing sign, now everybody runs in front of me and I hit them with the car. You move the sign in someplace.
Yep.
I mean, it is that absurd.
Yeah. No,
But,
that is the joke. That which came first, the deer crossing sign or the deer crossing there, right?
Exactly. Well, the other thing is that I read a thing today on Facebook, which was, it bothers the hell out of me. Because this woman says, my vegan dog, I have a dog and he's vegan and he loves his food and he jumps and joys. He's very, very healthy and stuff like that. I said, you are evil. There is no dog on the planet that's supposed to eat lettuce and cucumbers and radishes and as their sole food. They are carnivores. Just because you're vegan does not mean you should make other carnivores vegans. Man is not a carnivore. Man is a herb, has no claws. He doesn't have the acid in his stomach to digest meat. But since they became vegans and they no longer eat meat, they should keep their dogs from eating meat. That's wrong. That's not what a vegan does. A vegan, I don't wear any leather.
Mm-hmm.
I have a belt that's made out of fabric. I have a coat that's made out of something it's a vegan coat. It's looks like leather, but it's not. I don't wear leather shoes. That's what a vegan does. A vegan doesn't support zoos. A vegan doesn't support medical testing of animals. A vegan doesn't support cosmetic testing of animals. Vegans don't support that stuff. Because why? Because it's criminal. It's evil. That's why I say there's only one monster in the world, and that's a human monster. And they become monsters. You know, every psychopath starts out abusing animals. They all start out abusing little flies or little mice or little toads. And then they become John Gacy and all those other lunatics.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, I've heard that it kind of, that's how it tends to develop. Which, yeah, sometimes with my quips,
they practice.
Maybe not. I'll like say it like, oh yeah, like just as a side comment, be like, oh yeah, that's how John Wayne Gacy got his start, but not like, you know, just as kind of an aside under my breath comment, right? And then there's people say,
yeah,
like, well, where do you get your protein, right? And I'll say, well, what are you talking about? There's no protein in beef. The cows are vegetarian. How are they getting protein? Or like the chickens, they're vegetarian. How are they getting protein? There's no protein in chicken. And then they'll say, oh no, they eat vegetables, and there's plenty of there's plenty of protein in vegetables. I'm like, oh, is there? Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you could only get it from meat. And they're like, oh no, but and completely unaware about what just happened, right?
Yeah, they don't get a clue. Well,
yeah, like
here's the one that when people hit me with the protein thing, I sit there and say, do me a favor. I want you to think of the largest land animals on the planet. Tell me what they are. And people say rhino, elephant, hippo, giraffe, cow, horse. Yeah, okay, good. Tell me one thing they have in common. They eat only grass or leaves, period. Nothing else. And yet they are the biggest, strongest, most powerful beings on the planet. So do you really need protein? I don't think so. And besides, there's a study that came out that said that broccoli has twice as much protein as beef per 100 grams, per 100 calories.
Yeah, I think that's digested, right? Yeah, which is like, I mean, like the meat has more protein, but your body can't synthesize it, right? So like at the end of the day, what you get out of it, like Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Because
Yeah, so like,
you cannot digest it immediately. It digests in the colon, which is not digested. There's nothing in the colon to digest, but the acid has finally had enough time to start breaking some of it down. But there's not enough acid in the human stomach in order to digest meat before it turns into carcinogenic compounds to go into the colon and cause cancer. It can't be done. The acid won't do it. Like if you put your
yeah,
stomach acid into a cup and put meat in it, it will not disintegrate. But if you put Coca-Cola in a cup and put meat into it, it becomes liquid. These Coca-Colas got so much acid, but it's not human acid. Lion's
yeah,
acid is like 13 times as strong as humans. And I don't know what a Komodo dragon's stomach acid must be. Holy mackerel. Because they eat anything.
yeah,
Anyway.
yeah. So yeah, so you'll be flying around with your hang glider, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, and swimming with the sharks. And is that just off of the coast of California? Oh wait, no, you're not in California. You're in
What do
New
you mean
York.
for
What
the?
am I talking about? The coast of
I'm in New York. Yeah.
East Coast. What's that?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're the Atlantic Ocean, but you know, I'll go where the sharks are because they're everywhere. But I'll
Hmm.
fly wherever there's wind, and there's wind everywhere. I'm about to lose my power on the phone.
Oh, sure. Well, we'll let you
So
go. Thank you so much. We should do it again
it
sometime.
just went
And
black screen on me.
uh-oh. Well, thank you so much. If you can hear me, thanks a lot. And we'll have to do it
Yeah.
again
Yeah.
sometime.
Very good. Have a good
Yep.
day.
All right. Yep, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.